I'm a former visa officer and a licensed U.S. immigration attorney, and today we're going to do a deep dive on F-2 visa applications. If this is your first time to my channel, please hit subscribe because I'm constantly making new videos about the secret and mysterious world of U.S. visas. Now, about the F-2 visa application, what exactly is it and who qualifies? The F-2 visa application is considered a dependent application, and this means that it's for the immediate family members of the F-1 visa applicant, who is someone who has been approved a visa to go study in the US. Now, sometimes F-1 and F-2 visa applicants apply together. So, the person who's going to go study will bring their partner and spouse, as well as their children, to their VS interview, and everybody will be decided at the same time by the visa officer whether or not they qualify to get that visa. Other times, some people choose to have the F-1 visa applicant apply first, and then only if they pass do the F-2 visa applicants then go in next to apply for their visas. And so it's really just up to you which option you would like better. Generally, I would recommend to have the F-1 visa applicant apply first on their own so that at the interview, they can mostly focus on their studies. There's no distractions talking about their immediate family and what are they gonna do in the US. And plus, it could save you money because if the F-1 visa applicant does not qualify, if everybody was applying together, then that means that the F-2 visa applicants don't qualify either because it all depends on the F-1 visa applicant being able to get their visa approved. So if you have 4 people applying together and if the F-1 doesn't qualify, then all of a sudden you've lost a lot of money because you have had to pay visa application fees for every single person. Now, if you have the F-1 apply first, then you can spend a little bit of money, make sure that they're doing everything they can to pass, and only when they pass, then the family members will want to apply. Now, one thing I want to mention is that visa officers pay a lot of attention when talking to the primary F-1 visa applicant about whether or not they will have family members join them in the United States. This means that they will usually ask, hey, F-1 applicant, are you married? Do you have kids? And if the applicant says yes, then the officer often will ask, okay, you're going to go study in the US for 4 years. Does your family plan to come with you? So this is really important because if the F-1 applicant says, no, my family's going to stay here, my wife has a job and my kids are in school, I don't want to pull them out. Well, guess what? If 2 weeks later, the wife and the kids show up to apply for a visa and plan to join the F-1 visa applicant in the US, then the visa officer is going to think that somebody is lying. And this could be a big problem, not only for the F-2 visa applicants who will probably be denied, but also for the F-1 applicant who has already gotten a visa. It might even be grounds for the F-1 losing his visa. So something very important to keep in mind. But the second thing to be aware of is that beyond just the most important aspect of the F-2 visa application and interview, which is determining, the relationship and that the relationship exists, when the F-2 is interviewing, the officer will probably ask, how long have you been married? How many children do you have? What is your life like in the US? Those are some very common questions that will be asked. But the other thing that they're not going to tell you is that the F-2 visa application sometimes is a time to check up on the F-1 and what he's doing, especially if the F-1 visa applicant has left and gone to the United States first. So I'll give you an example. The F-1 visa applicant applies for a visa, is attending Harvard University, and gets his visa approved, everything goes great, and then a month later travels to the United States, everything is great. Now, 2 months down the line, the family members of the F-1 visa applicant decide to apply for a visa. They've decided, we want to go now. We've always planned to go to the US, once the F-1 gets settled in and, knows what to expect. So they apply. A couple of issues that could come up here is, like I mentioned before, if the F-2 applies and in the notes for the F-1 visa applicant, it says, oh, family is staying behind, not joining in the US. This is going to be a big problem when the F-2s apply and will probably get them denied. At this point, the F1 visa applicant is already in the US, so there's not really a way to take that visa back, but they might also get in trouble the next time they're applying for a visa. The second thing to be aware of is now that we're a few months into the process, at the time of the F2 visa interview, the officer will likely do a quick checkup on what the F1 visa applicant is doing. They're going to check the SEVIS record. They're going to talk to the F2 applicant just to see, how are things going. Now, if the F1 visa applicant has done a lot of confusing things or things that don't seem in line with their initial interview, this is where the whole family could kind of get in trouble. So one scenario I've seen is when an F1 visa applicant, gets approved for a visa and is supposed to go to Harvard, but actually ends up, as soon as he gets to the US, not going to school. So he falls out of status and the SEVIS record is terminated. And then the F2 visa applicants, his wife or partner and children come to apply, and the officer checks on the F1 SEVIS records and realizes that it's been terminated. Yikes, that is going to be a big problem. So just keep in mind that the F2 visa application is always an opportunity for the officer to check on the truthfulness of the previous applicant who applied, to check on the truthfulness of the F2 visa application, and also to double check on the F1 visa applicant, especially if they've already left for the United States, okay? So these are all things that you wanna take into consideration if you're applying for an F2 visa. Now keep in mind, I gave some examples like, the person who went is the husband and the wife is falling to join. This really can be interchangeable. It could be the wife who's the student and the husband who is applying to join. And anytime you're in an unusual situation, not the traditional situation where one person is following the other, perhaps you are planning kind of a weird schedule where you go there for a little bit and you come back, anything out of the ordinary, you really want to work with an expert to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, because visa officers are always sort of sniffing out unusual situations. And if something is unusual, that is going to cause them to deny the visa. And once there is a visa denial, it will stay in your record forever. And we want to avoid that at all costs, because it will cause more problems down the line for future visa applications, even if it's a different type of visa application. Okay, I really hope that this video has been helpful for you. If you are someone who is encountering problems with your F2 visa, or you've already been denied and you have more serious issues, regardless, I'm here to help. You can book a personal consultation with me at www.zfvisa.com, and I would be happy to help you come up with a strategy and help you get your visa approved. Okay, I wish you all the best on this US visa journey.